Well, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing and whoever you're lucky enough to be doing it to, I am Bushka on Blitz, and it gives me great pleasure and joy to be back here with you today as we do another hot diggity dog tank review for your eyes only. Now, this is the M48A1 Patton, and by the way, this is a Patreon-sponsored post. I'm actually doing a video every day. It seems like it's 2 months now and we're doing a video every day, and there's a hell of a lot of content going on, and it's been fantastic. The response has been overwhelming, and the patrons are making this possible because they are sponsoring me in volume, and volume is where the love is, baby. So let's talk about the M48A1. I want to go through a few things about this tank. The good parts of it, the negatives of it, and where it sits in the pantheon of Tier X tanks, and why... I've bagged it before, not bagged it so much. I called it the Vanilla Gorilla originally because it is very vanilla. It does a little bit of everything, you know, but doesn't do anything amazingly, but it does a little bit of everything pretty good. And that's the downfall, I think. I'll go through the vital statistics of this tank because I had a good time driving it, and it was the first ever medium tank I owned. And I didn't know anything about medium tanks back then. Didn't know about gun depression even. I knew nothing. Didn't know about terrain resistance or anything. By the way, watch this poor bugger in the E100 roll to 1 hit point and come second. Good golly, Miss Molly. This tank is a good tank because it is a Tier X medium. Now, that cannot be denied. If you are a Tier X medium, you will output an enormously large amount of damage per minute. You will have good penetration values on your APCR and excellent penetration values on your heat. You will have a very reliable gun. You will be fast. You will be mobile. And that's all there is to it. There is not a single Tier X medium that doesn't have all those attributes. The worst in terms of speed is 40 kilometers an hour with the FV4202, and that is remarkably low for a Tier X medium. And in terms of gun depression, again, this tank isn't the best. In terms of speed, it's not the best, but it's up there at all times. It's also as big as a house, and it's got terrible camouflage. And that's the two things I think that hold it back the most, is the size of the tank and the fact that the camo rating on it is so poor. It has exceptional view range. 270 is the top view range in the game, and it's got it. It's got a 50 kilometer an hour top speed, 50 degrees of traverse on its tracks, which is very, very good. 40 degrees of traverse on its turret. It's got a .36 dispersion gun, which is certainly no great shakes, but it's more than accurate enough to work. As you can see by these videos here, it's got a 2.0 second aim time, which again is not amazing, but is more than accurate enough to work, as you can see from these videos here. And it has a lovely 350 alpha. An often unmentioned fact about this tank is that it has a very high HE damage. It's got 440. Most of the other Tier X mediums have a standard 400 on their 350 alpha guns, and less for your Russian mediums. This one's got 440. The E50M also has a high explosive value than the Leo 1, despite having the same alpha and a very, very similar weapon. So there's one to put in your back pocket. 7.71 rounds a minute, which is just fine. 2,700 odd damage, which again is great. I believe it's just a touch behind the STB1, and just a bit above the E50M in terms of pure DPM. 9 degrees of gun depression, which is good, but again, not class leading. Where it falls down is size. Now, you are so big, you have to expose yourself quite often to get these shots. But if you're smart about the way you play it, that's never going to be a problem in a Tier X medium because they're so they're so quick and they're so agile. But it's particularly an issue with the Patton. You see the tumor on top of its head, the little view hatch on the very top for the commander's hatch, however you want to mention it, want to talk about it. It's absolutely abysmal. Now, I don't understand. You can see that's an E50M next to me in that last... I mean, look at the size of this thing compared to Russian mediums. Have a look at the size of it. It's enormous. I mean, you see it coming from the next postcode. And its camo rating is the worst in game. Its camo rating, while completely stationary, is only slightly better, or in fact I think it's worse than an Object 140 while it's moving. I mean, try that on for size. It makes absolutely no sense. And the tumour on top of the turret, the big round turret that is not very well armoured at all, is around 60 to 80 millimetres at best, which means that an FV215B183 firing bullets at this tank will pen straight through the turret, through the top of that tumour, for full value. Like, you can get heshed for 1400 through the pimple on top of a T110E5. You'll get heshed just about every time if they hit the top of this turret. So you've got a tank that has some big weak points. But for all that, it's got some positives as well. It's got 9 degrees of gun depression. It's got good DPM. It's got a reasonable gun. And it's very, very solid at firing on the move. And it's tier X, so you've got 350 average alpha on a decent gun, and you've got good mobility. I mean, you can see in this game here, we're not doing anything special, but we're going to do good damage because the tank is a tier X medium. And I'm a bit like, look at the size of it compared to the E50M. The E50M is massive. This is a bigger tank. If you compare this to the T110E5, it's as big, if not taller, than the T110E5. And it makes it harder to find. Harder to hide, not harder to find. So what the tank does well, though, is put out damage. And it's a tier X med, and if we're going to talk about how to play it, and you're going to buy it, and you're going to be successful, then we'll talk about that. You want to play it as often as possible on hills, because it's got 9 degrees of gun depression, and for the fact that it's massive, it still gets up and down hills really, really well. It's very mobile, 50 kilometers an hour, and you can see here, whenever I'm moving about in it, it gets around just fine. Gets up to top speed pretty quick, and you're going to see we're going to use the hills here again. We're just looking over the top, trying to find opportunities to shoot, and that's one of the joys of this tank. You can get it up on top of a hill, and you can shoot down without actually having to get smashed, which is a big thing. Now, I'm trying to do that without giving up my spot in the bush here, and without being spotted, and we managed to do that because the tank is pretty bloody good at that. You can fire over the right hand or left hand drive wheel very, very comfortably. Now, for all this, I had a great time driving the tank. I really did. I drove it with my mates. I drove it solo. I gave it a really good hard workout because I wanted to be sure I wasn't missing out on anything. And I don't think it's a sin to enjoy driving this tank at all, even though I believe it's probably not as good as some of the other mediums. For instance, the Object 140 and the T62A are just phenomenally strong medium tanks. I mean, the amount of damage they output, their weapons, their speed, their mobility, their armor, they beat this tank in nearly every category. I mean, the view range on this tank is very good, and it's one of the reasons why, particularly on this tank, and I mean, that's gun depression, that shot there. Getting that down would never happen in the T62A or a 140, and that's something that you can find in these games is very, very important. And look, you can see the tank's a T10 medium. It does grand. It just hammers. Like it's a tier X medium. I don't know if you guys understand this. I mean, tier 8 and such, you need to be playing your best tank. Tier 9, even there, you can get away with things because you've got 2400 DPM on a variety of tanks. Tier X mediums jump up again. Their damage is better. Their accuracy, their movement is generally better. And that's what this tank does. Now, the other tier X mediums that have good gun depression, like the FV4202 has 10 degrees. The STB1 has 10 degrees of gun depression. The Leo 1 has the same as the M48A1, which is 9 degrees of gun depression. They're all very, very fine because they're smaller turrets. They're a lot easier to not get hit with, but quite a few of them don't have any turret armor whatsoever. The M48A1 has a reasonable armor profile. It's better than the Leo. Its chassis is better than the STB1. Its turret is better than the Leo 1 and probably on a par with the FV4202, slightly better than the FV4202, which isn't saying much because the 4202's turret is not particularly great. But you can get shots off. You can set the tank up, and if you know how to drive, you can see here, we can go over hills and that, and we don't miss shots because of gun depression. And that's a big thing. I mean, being able to get shots off, make it a pretty easy drive. Now, if you know your camo settings and you know to hide your turret when you're not got a shot in the barrel, you'll be apples. Because the M48A1 can do a lot of things well because it is a tier X medium, and I keep harping on about that, but it really needs to be said. It's it's probably, in my opinion, the worst Tier X medium. Maybe, I mean, it's hard to judge. I really enjoyed the FE 4202, but the 4202 doesn't have a turret, and it's very, very slow. It doesn't have a mantlet, sorry. And this tank, for all its deficiencies, it puts out damage. It has gun depression, it has a reasonable weapon, and it's capable of moving around. If they removed the tumour on top, I would be all over this tank. I think it would be fantastic. And I still don't understand, and this is a wargaming issue, this is nothing to do with me. I don't understand why you can have Tier X mediums like the 4202 and the Leo 1 and the T62A who can do 3,000 damage per minute, and you get a tank like this that just can't compete with that. It doesn't have those kind of numbers. I want to talk to you though about the loadout. I run on this tank, I run a V-stab, I run optics, and I run a gun rammer, because with double rations, if you're going to play Tier X and you run double rations, you'll be able to run the tank quite comfortably and get all the benefits you had from vents previously, and not really need that extra little bit, and really get some joy from the extra money you get from seeing people at extreme range. Now, 10% on your optics with your rations will give you a 300 meter view range on this tank, which is massive, absolutely enormous, and really, really important. I love this. Go to heat on the mouse and completely stuff it and miss completely, and should just stay with APCR. You can see us just working hills, moving around, finding shots. It's really, really valuable with this. We get a HE shot here in the Waffenträger. You can see firing on the move. It's just fine. Its armor is not that crash hot. But what are you going to do? That's a Tier X weapon on that Waffenträger, 640 Alpha. A whole lot of damage. And we're going to nail him. Come around. Turn around. Hit him again. Thank you very much. It's good. Good tank. You'll enjoy it if you drive it. It's not the best Tier X medium, but maybe that's not the most important thing in the world. Someone said to me on the comments section just today, I think it was, that is there any tank you don't like? And I've bagged the Type 61. I don't really like that. I bagged the 183. I mean, watch this shot. This is gun depression. You don't get this on other tanks. 9 degrees. Gun depression is important. You do get it on other tanks, but you don't get it on the Russian mediums of the E50M. And they asked me, are there any tanks you don't like? And you can see I did great in this tank. Did great damage, won a lot of games, ran around. And I said to them, look, I don't think that's fair. I bagged the Type 61. I bagged the FE 215B 183 before they gave it a gun buff. But most tanks work. Most tanks can work if you know how to drive, if you have a basic understanding of the game mechanics and camo and reload times and peekaboo and side scraping and flanking and map awareness. If you can get a grasp on those things, there aren't many tanks in the game that won't work, and there's no point doing reviews saying this is a terrible tank when in fact I'd just be a terrible driver for saying it was a terrible tank. And this tank is not a terrible tank. And if you enjoy medium tanks, you can drive this tank successfully. If you have to 1v1 a T62A who is firing heat, you are screwed, because he has more DPM than you. He has a turret that you'll very, very much struggle to penetrate. You have a huge glaring weak spot on the top of it. I mean, there's situations where you'll still win because you'll be a better driver. This tank is percentage points worse than a 62A. It's percentage points worse than an Object 140 in my opinion. It's percentage points worse than a Leo 1 for me as well. But for all that, is it going to do well? Is it going to be able to carry if you know how to drive? Damn straight. Is it going to be able to do a heap load of damage? Well, you can see I clocked up massive amounts of 4K games in it. It was not an issue. The only thing holding the tank back is the driver most of the time. And if you're looking for the ultimate Tier X medium, then this probably won't be it for you. But if you're looking for something that's a good line, I mean, the M46 Patton's good. The Pershing's a solid tank. I don't rate the T20 at all. I've never reviewed it. I started driving it and couldn't stand it. I mean, you've got two tanks at X and 9 that you can actually do well in. Bob's your mother's brother. Go for your life. Do your best. But if you're looking for the best TRX medium, then I don't think this is it. You'll still enjoy it. Anyway, there you go. I hope you like that long soliloquy on the M48A1 Patton. Certainly a reasonable drive, very easy to run, very easy to use, good view range, bugger all armor, big as a house, crap camo. Don't try and use it as a stealth sniper, and you'll be just fine and Jim Dandy. I'm Bushka on Blitz. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your support. I'm passionate about this game. I hope you guys are, and I hope you enjoy the videos. I've been a bit of cranky pants of late on the Asia server. I've been playing too much. I've been whinging and biting when the people say noob, and I've got to stop that. So if you see me out in the game, say g'day, say hello, and I'll say hello back, and let's make it a better place to hang out. Rock on, team, and stay safe on the battlefield.